Welcome to Career Boss. Today we're going to talk about mentoring. I've been a mentor for a couple of people, and I'm going to go through the process and their successes. Um, so I was asked to be a mentor. I've been a senior executive for the last 25 years, and I've learned a lot, and I'd like to pass on what I've learned to you. Welcome to Career Boss. So I'm going to show you some templates that I have in here that I use, and I figured I might as well just offer them to you free of charge, of course. If you want to connect to me at HeyCareerBoss@gmail.com, I'll give you a proposal template in terms of writing a proposal, and if you want to do mentoring, and then I'm going to have a discussion or a discovery discussion template that you'll use with the employer you're going to be mentoring, and three, a monthly tracking sheet so you can look at the performance of your mentee and discuss it on a regular basis. So let's get right into it. So this is for two people. Whether you want to be a mentor, again, I'm including these three documents here. And again, if you want them, just email me at heycareerboss@gmail.com. But maybe you want somebody to mentor you, and they might not know how to go about it because it is a bit of work. You can also download the at least the two documents that track the discovery conversation, as well as the monthly tracking sheet. So I was asked to be a mentor, and it sort of came out of the blue. And it was at a company where I was acting as a consultant, and two employees approached me separately near the end of my contract with them, asking whether I could help mentor them. And I'm going to get into one of the details about one of them shortly on when I have that. I'll show you the notes from my discovery conversation with them. In both cases, however, they were looking to get promoted within the next 3 to 6 months. So when I was offered this, I thought, well, you know what, this is going to be fun. I like both the employees, and I think they have potential. And as a consultant, I'll never really pass up a fun, billable opportunity. So the very first the very first thing that I did was I did a literature review because I hadn't mentored before, nor had I been mentored. And after going through this process with them, I discovered that, boy, it would have been great if I'd been mentored in my career. So here's a couple of the sources that I took a look at. The first one was from theatlantic.com. Why can't companies get mentorship programs right? So that was a source of information. And then another one was from HubSpot, which is 10 mentoring tips for the corporate mentor. I looked up some other ones and I integrated some readings here, but those were the two main ones I used to create or conduct my literature review before putting the program together. Full disclosure, I've only mentored two people at this time, but the outcome is going to speak volumes for you. I see it as another potential revenue stream of something I like to do, but at the moment I'm too busy with other things I like to do, such as being a professor at a university, an instructor at a college, and a few other minor projects at my consulting company. So I've only mentored two people at this time. However, Client one wanted a promotion from director to the executive team. I had worked with him a little bit in my consulting role that I'd been in there, so I got to know him a bit, and I thought that he did have potential to get there. The second person wanted a promotion from manager to director. In this case, he thought he was already doing the director's job, but was being overlooked. And in both cases, I thought, okay, I think I can help you out. So did it work for them? Well, the first fellow became an executive team member within 2.5 to 3 months. So I'd say it worked. There was a little bit of tuning of his personality that I needed to do. But he worked very hard at it. The next person was a bit more of a challenge because he had a new boss come in and he had to get to know her and show what he could do. So it was a bit of a challenge and an opportunity as well. So he got his promotion probably shorter than 6 months. I'd say it was around 4 or 5 months. He moved up to the director position, and of course, once these two, I'll call them clients, two clients got to where they wanted to be, we were in continuous contact on a regular basis. And actually, I started working with them pro bono because I was working on other things. But I was just interested in how their career would go. So I stay in touch with them to today, and that's probably been, it was 2018, I think, that I worked with them, and it's 2021 now. So the article that said 10 mentoring tips for the corporate mentor were an eye-opener for somebody like me who was asked to be a mentor, and I hadn't really thought about doing it. So these 10 mentoring tips I thought were very good to keep in mind. The first one was you're there to facilitate. You're not there to clone. You're not there to turn your client or your mentee, I suppose, into somebody who's like you. You want to work on his or her strengths and build from there. So you're not trying to clone them as you. That's the very first thing. So you've got to watch the stories about, okay, well, this worked for me. You've got to have them explore different options themselves. Second point was uniqueness is important. They're going to be very different than you, than each other. So you again have to build on that uniqueness that each person brings to the table. So that's important as well. Back to for a second, that uniqueness is important. And that's why you have to really, it's really critically important that you create a relationship with them, that you really get to know them on several levels. And in my proposal document that I'll run through with you, I'll show you the 4 levels that I look at in terms of understanding my mentee. Consistency is critical. So you have to arrange a contract with your mentee as to how often you're going to be talking to him or her, and whether that's by phone or by video or in person, however it works, and what you intend to talk about. So that means there's always preparation on a regular basis based on an upcoming meeting between you and your mentee. Again, remember that this is also a document for those who are looking for a mentor that they can hand over in terms of guidelines so that the mentor that they choose can work with them in, I guess, in a very organized way. Number 4. Yeah, faking is not making it. That's not, I'm not talking about you as the mentor. Um, But if I was, maybe I am. Faking is not, if you don't understand something as a mentor, let your mentee know that you don't understand. First of all, they want to see that you're human as well and can't absolutely know everything. So certainly as a mentor, you don't fake it. You be upfront with them. If you don't know about something, say you're going to explore it or explore it with them, and that's important. And of course, I did another video about can you fake it till you make it? And my consensus was based on a quote that I had on there is that you can fake confidence, but you cannot fake competence. Let's go to number 5. You're going to empower rather than solve. If you've been an executive or a manager for a while, you're used to solving problems and making decisions. This isn't the case here when you're mentoring. You're giving your mentor, or sorry, your mentee, the freedom to solve things themselves. And that's really, really critically important. Number 6. Number 6. Okay. So you're not responsible for your mentee's success, well, solely responsible. You both have shared responsibility here. What I discovered, it was a lot more work than I expected, but every minute of it was enjoyable. Okay, but you're not responsible for their success. They have to put in the work. Number 7, appreciate what you are giving. Well, this is interesting. When I started as a professor, um, I was surprised how much I knew after being in business for 45 years. Um, so understand that what you're providing is something that's going to be very, very valuable. Um, just keep that in mind. Maybe it's the little things you think that might not be that important, but they are important. Number 8, it's not exactly coaching. It's deeper than coaching because it's important you get into a one-on-one relationship with the person who is your mentee. This is really critically important. So it goes deeper than coaching because you're going to be exploring other parts of the person's life rather than just their work life because you have to make sure that everything fits. Number 9, okay, honor your limits and boundaries. You have to ensure you've got boundaries in your discussions. Maybe it's topics that you will not cover, or maybe it's the time frames or the importance of having your meetings, whether they're bi-monthly or less frequent or more frequent. You have to make sure that your mentee respects your boundaries, particularly when it comes to things that you're not willing to talk about or people you're not willing to talk about. Number 10. Yeah, listening is hard. Um, you probably don't know, but I'm an owner in a mental wellness company where we've got about 250 therapists. And one thing that they teach you is the importance of listening and understanding. And in this case, not being judgmental. So listening certainly is an art, and you've probably heard of active listening. That's really, really critically important that you let your mentee talk and you understand what it is that they're saying. This is this was a bit of a challenge for me because I'm looking to solve problems on a regular basis. And in this case, this isn't what you're there to do. Your mentee is there to solve the problem. So you have to listen and then understand what they're getting at. And just, I guess the advice is something you can provide, but mostly you have to take your client to their end game themselves. So it does require preparation. That's what I'm talk about now. So for those of you who are thinking of becoming a mentor, again, email me at heycareerboss@gmail.com. I'll send you a Word document that shows my mentorship proposal. I have no hesitation sharing this with you. It's not something I'm planning to be doing in the near future. It may come up, 5 or 6 years down the line, but but this has worked for me. So I'm just going to send it. I'll send it to you if that's something that you're looking for. So this would be something I'd send a company or a VP or a boss, a CEO I've sent this to. And basically what it is I provide an executive summary and say the program's designed to maximize the future performance of high potential individuals. See, that's really important. I feel like I have to identify them as high potential individuals who need that little bit of help to get to the next step. And as I said, I'll focus on educating them on topics that otherwise would be acquired less thoroughly, more slowly, or not at all. So that's my positioning at the front end in terms of the services that I would be providing as a mentor. Yours might be a little bit different, but again, this is what works for me. And the objectives, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but the objectives are to help the participants or the mentees identify and achieve career development and personal growth goals that support business objectives. So remember, I'm typically pitching this to their boss or pitching this to a CEO of a company. And certainly rather than sending a blank proposal, I'll try and meet the CEO and talk to them or have a hot lead on a CEO, but that's another topic. Number 2, I like to foster higher levels of engagement and career vision. In other words, engagement in the sense that often, in both cases, I worked on these clients' personal brands. And I'm not going to get into detail on that, but that was very important for both of them in order to achieve that higher level of engagement and career vision in sense of where they want to go. Number 3, equip participants with the tools necessary, knowledge, skills, and abilities to perform to their highest capability. All right, so I'm not going to get into all this. You can just simply cut and paste or whatever you want to do. But the next little diagram on the bottom where it says program components, um, I'll walk you through a little bit of that. And it's all focused in the green circle called My Brand. My Brand is in terms of typically developing awareness, personal awareness for the mentee, getting involved as we both get involved together, and sustaining commitment. In other words, ensuring that we work to develop that brand for the individual. And I look at four, I guess a quadrant here. So 4 quadrants. First is the person's working style. Then I look at their career in terms of what they're planning, their craft, what they're great at, or what they want to be great at. And the fourth one on the bottom being my life. So all those areas intersecting. The second page of the proposal, a little bit longer, but this is important. a little bit of a quote on the right saying, according to the Association for Talent Development, a Virginia-based nonprofit focused on workplace learning and professional development, more than 70% of Fortune 500 companies have some type of mentorship program. Now, obviously, if I'm pitching to a CEO through this document, I want something in there. So I'm not going to get into this. I'm going to show you a little bit of how I walked through it with one of the clients. But the first one was that discovery meeting or discovery session where it's a personal interview with your mentee. So this is your starting off point with your mentee to understand what it is that drives them and their work style and those things that we saw in the 4 quadrants. So the first part was expectation of the process, barriers to progress, education needs, level of drive, short, medium, and long-term goals, stop, start, continue exercising. In other words, what do they need to stop doing? What do they need to start doing? What do they need to continue doing? Um, Management style, working style, the level of exposure within the company and outside. So building networks, which is a big part of this as well. And often they don't have that network that they think they do inside. So I explore that with them as well. We have to define what success looks like, understand what their learning style is, figure out their goals and timelines for their current job and their future jobs. I'll look at succession planning above and below, which is kind of different, um, but it's always good to explore that. My observations to date, now that's on a regular basis that I'll provide that, but I do provide that in the document and how we intend to communicate with each other and how often we intend to do. Then we talk about bi-monthly meetings because that's typically how I like to do it, twice a month. So it's Fridays every 2 weeks. And then there's ad hoc conversations, and these came up quite frequently with the two mentees that I had. It's not a I guess they hit anxious situations might be the way to describe the calls I would receive. So they were very important and urgent to the mentee, so I would get to them as quickly as I could. So these are conversations that are necessary between the regular bi-monthly meetings. So we give each other assignments where I'll provide articles for discussion to help the mentee advance, and I'll be searching on new information based on what the mentee is trying to achieve. Number 5, monthly highlights. I'm going to go through that document briefly with you, but it is where the mentee lists 3 achievements from the past month that they're proud of. They talk about how it happened, and we explore that a little bit. 360 evaluations from peers and leaders. So that's one thing I'm going to do with every mentee is I'm going to explore the performance with those that report to her or him, and then I'll talk to their seniors or their bosses, depending on who that might be. And then finally, mentoring metrics so that we see how we've succeeded as a team. So remember, the mentor and the mentee are a team at this point. Also in the proposal, the third page is basically mentoring time requirements. So this is where I start to let the potential buyer of this service, and that will usually be a CEO or HR person or the division head where the mentee is working. So it's typically a 1-year duration and it's evaluated at the 1-year mark. It could be shorter than that. In this case, it was a little bit shorter than that for the 2 I had because they succeeded so quickly. Bi-monthly meetings in person or on video, given COVID stuff going on, is 1.5 to 2 hours. And again, preparation of 3 hours per month per mentee is what I've got to put into it, where I develop strategies, identify pertinent literature, and I check in with the peers and their leaders to see how they're doing. So in terms of an investment, this is kind of my lower rate. But this gives you a feel. In the marketplace where I am at $250 an hour, that's pretty reasonably for somebody with 45 years of experience, experience as a professor and instructor, a person who has 3 startup companies under the belt and has a lot of corporate experience. So where I live, at $250 an hour is a good deal, is a reasonable amount. So the initial discovery session is typically 4 hours. You'll see a little bit about it here, but it's a huge discussion and it's a long discussion. And so I said at $250 an hour, that's $1,000. The second point is I create the plan for the employee and source specific content. That's about another 4 hours, again, $1,000 plus tax. And then the regular monthly meetings as needed are 2 1.5 meetings plus 3 hours of preparation. Again, that's monthly at $750 per month for the person. I sometimes don't charge if I'm talking to my mentee for under half an hour. If it's one of those urgent calls, I don't know why. I don't. Maybe it's a value add. And then I sort of doctored the next line where if you want to be a mentor and use this as a proposal document, I said it, I didn't use my real name. I said about HeyCareerBoss and his mentors. And I talked about my life with mentors and how they helped me advance. So that would be the proposal. So if you're thinking of being a mentor, you like what you're seeing, let me know. Okay, so discovery meeting, this is with one of my mentees, and I don't have all his answers in this case. This was the person who wanted to step up to be a director. So I'll call him client X. And so again, this is the conversation. I usually book 4 hours for this. I usually do 2 hours in the morning, have a lunch, and then 2 hours after with my client. And he knows or she knows the questions I'm going to ask in advance. But it's a matter of an exploratory thing. One of the things I also do is focus groups and personal interviews. So reach into your ability to explore and ask questions because it's going to be very important if you decide to do this. Now, if you're the person looking for the mentor, these are the kind of questions that the mentor that you choose should be asking you. And they may not know that. So you might want copies of this discovery conversation as well that you can provide to your mentor when you're proposing that she or he be your mentor. Okay, so let's go number one again. What's your ultimate working goal? In this case, he said, I wanted to step up to be a director, but he had no interest in becoming a VP, which would have been the step after. I knew the company where he was working very well, and at the VP level, you're 24/7. So I'm sure that's one of the main reasons he didn't want to be a VP, but he wanted to get up to the director level. Then he told me he prefers his current company, but would consider external companies. He has 27 years into the current company, however, including his pension. So right now he wants compensation and recognition as a measuring stick. He feels he is already working at the director level. So that's a bit of a problem. So in this case, I've got a mentee who's doing the work at a director's level but not being recognized. And that won't be that uncommon because with businesses now focus on doing more with less, you're going to see more and more of that where people are being pushed to work at a level above the one that they are being recognized or paid for. Number two, what are your sub goals? So I'm going to probe relationships. I'm going to probe power, wealth, balance between family and work, values and ethics. This is where I've got to work a little bit harder to get to the underlying reasons why my mentee or mentees in this case, why my mentees really want this. So I'm going to probe that emotional desire as well. So in this case, he said his priorities were health, family, and work. He was somebody who was dealing with a couple of health problems, so that made total sense. He wanted to make sure his son was safe as he's moving out. I think he was going to university or someplace. And in terms of wealth, his option was to retire at 57. He wants to have options when he hits his 35th anniversary if he stays at the same company. Now, we went into this a lot deeper than what I've shown you here because I didn't think it was fair to share. So that in terms of his relationships and power and wealth. Number three was putting timelines to his goals and his sub goals. So this is what he does. This is his job. So he wanted to be a director level in this company on the marketing side of products and services, but then he said not necessarily marketing. Okay, he's working at that level now and he hasn't been recognized. So he wants to be recognized in the next half year to a year. His other areas of interest included business development, and that's his first choice, he said to me. He's very interested in B2B. And then my comment on the back was, okay, so I can arrange for a sales course with him, which just happens to be something that I do teach. Government relations was his second choice. So he wants to work on the lack of alignment with the current company that he worked with. And his third choice was cybersecurity. So that was important to me to understand as a mentor where he was looking. And important to him, obviously, too. So number 4 was, what are your expectations of our relationship? He says, I want to learn to network externally. So I wrote a note here just for you that I'd written there was, I have a how to network um, slide deck that I use to teach in sales. And so I was just reminding myself to go through that with him in detail. He wants to be able to network internally, which is interesting that he recognized that. One of the things I always push as an executive to anybody that works at a company is have an enterprise view. Understand how the company works, not just your particular area. Okay. Um, he wants to talk through the hurdles that he's facing. Okay. He explained that he's a base hitter. He doesn't need lots of recognition. So he's not going for a home run. He's a base hitter, he says. So network that he defined, networking that he defined included building of relationships or bridges and interconnection for collaboration. All right. So internally and externally, he made that pretty clear. I have a deck on small talk that I also teach. So I was going to teach him how the easy way, 3 steps to do small talk. And I want to make sure that I elevate or help him elevate his personal brand. So number 5 was, how would you describe your level of drive? I kept most of it here. He says he loves the opportunity to help others. Good. He's driven by recognition and how money or title can reflect that. Money is the yardstick, and it's all in relationship to his peers. Interesting. Uh, his energy level dictates his approach. He can work hard for 9 to 10 hours a day, and then it's his time thereafter. Now he was or is dealing with a health problem that he needs some wind down time, but so that I understood. So 9 to 10 hours a day, that's reasonable if you're trying to get ahead. He's worried about a reorganizational structure that could reduce his opportunities in marketing, but he wants to be in business to business. So I'll just take that into consideration at that point. He always wants to start and own a series of businesses, more risk taking than his wife. So that is interesting. Again, his prime focus, as we saw earlier, is B2B. Okay. So that's obviously something I have to explore in terms of how likely he is to do that and what commitment he is willing to put into starting a business. Having started 3 in the last 10 years, that really took off, and one that failed miserably. I felt I could coach him on that. What else? He briefly discussed lead versus manage. Based on a little test we did, he's clearly a leader. He thinks about work all the time. And then I think about his fact that he wants to have time for himself at the end of the day. It doesn't seem like he can do that. He talks through things with himself, and he puts pressure on himself to succeed. So he needs this pressure release when he's home and to not talk about work. So he's got a conundrum that obviously I'm going to explore with him, or I did explore with him, which is you can't leave it at work, you're bringing it home, although you need me time. So that was something that we needed to explore. Who do you see as barriers to your progress? So he had this, all kinds of coworkers and bosses that he identified. And then here's a brief synopsis of stop, start, continue. Again, what do you need to stop doing because it's not working for you? What do you need to start doing so it will work for you? And then what do you need to continue working? So stop relying on a certain person. Well, it was actually in this case, it was 2 or 3 persons that he expected to promote his personal brand. Personally, I've never really seen that work that well. You have to promote your own brand or at least make it easier for people to promote your personal brand. So that was clearly something we worked on. Start activities. He wants to have activities for targeted bosses. So in this case, we decided, actually, it was him that decided he's going to send up summary sheets to certain bosses on the way things were going, little updates. Continue to understand his boss's expectations so he can align and help her. And then working hard and smartly. What's his next one? Last couple here is how would you describe your working style? And again, so you're the mentor and you're going through this with your mentee, or you're the mentee and these are the questions that you provided your new mentor. So how would you describe your working style? He wants to work on being less detail oriented. oriented. He wanted to have better time management for his own sanity, he said. So we talked about, it's a note to myself in italics, we talked about having his assistant review and prioritize his emails for him every morning, and that way she got to learn as well. He was clearly very focused at work, and again, we talked about leader versus manager. What's your leadership style? So this is interesting. So you got to watch this one when you're asking a mentee this, because they may think they have one, but it's not what they think. So there's a few tests that are out there. Just Google it, leader versus manager, so that you can determine if the person is aligned to the truth or not. So he says he likes to set direction and let his team members go. He wants to be more fluid, um, provide assistance when needed. I had made a joke, not a joke, but a comment about having a very Protestant work ethic. And he built his relationships based on trust, he said. And here we go. So briefly, I didn't include any of his comments here, but who do you admire at your company and why? And he developed several employees. Have you thought about succession planning above and below, which is interesting? Because if you want to move up and your boss doesn't see this coming, you got to make sure that you have aligned somebody to take your place, right? How will you groom your potential successor? Then I have my section on my observations to date that, any prior conversations I may have had with the mentee. And 14, how will we communicate with each other and how often? So that would be the discovery meeting questions that I have with my mentee. Finally, I know this is a bit of a long video here, but this is critical for future, um, to track future accomplishments so that he doesn't forget in this case, and then he realizes what he's accomplished because he was one of those people that accomplishes something and goes, okay, I'm just going to move it over to the next thing. All right. So monthly highlights, remember it was 2 meetings a month. So monthly highlights, he'd do this, and I'd said, list 3 achievements from the past month that you are proud of, and check off the values and strategic goals you supported with his action. So that might be those things that are written on the side, such as leadership, attention from the right people, teamwork, accountability. Those would be example of values and strategic goals. I said that these achievements could include a new marketing leadership strategy you've tried, successful activity you introduced to your team, a book or article you read related to marketing or leadership, assisting your peers, specific ways you're supporting your employees, research you have undertaken to improve your personal performance, and a difficult conversation you've managed. And then finally, an opportunity you had to impress your bosses, all that kind of stuff. So that's what they do. The mentee would fill these out every month, and I'd have them do three highlights. Highlight 1 is, basically answer these 3 questions: what you achieved, what goal you accomplished on the right, which pillars did it address? That's something I didn't cover here. But yeah, it's right here. Sorry, these are on the right hand side. So the goals will be personal goals that they had for every activity. So then they do this 2 more times for the month. And then finally, I say, what are next month's activities? Or I say, list an item that you plan on working on this month. This should be something specific you want to work on. It could be a skill you want to develop, an executive you need to get the attention of, a project you will be leading, all this kind of stuff. So then he answers these questions in terms of opportunity, the action plan, and whether he needs any support to succeed. So those are the 3 documents. Again, if you're looking to become a mentor and you want to pitch the idea to companies, I gave an example of the proposal, and then I gave you an example of the discovery meeting and conversation you have, which is basically the first meeting you have with your mentee, and third, the monthly highlights sheet. So these should be what you need to get started. Again, if you want to be mentored by somebody, then you provide the last 2 documents again, which is the discovery conversation and then the monthly highlight sheet if your mentor doesn't know how to get started. And yeah, so these are the documents. If you're interested in them, please, I'll send them out to you. I'll send them out to you within 24 hours. Just email me at at HeyCareerBoss. Let me just tell you that's HeyCareerBoss@gmail.com. I should have included that there. So it's HeyCareerBoss@gmail.com, or drop a link in the comments section if you want to see these templates and some way to connect with you. So that's it for today from Career Boss. Thanks for listening. And if you like what you see, please hit that like button or thumbs up button, and I would appreciate it. Thanks again.